To this day, one of the main issues people have with Christianity is that they think Christians and the church are judgmental and a bunch of hypocrites. That's actually a whole bunch of my family and my close friends. They're in that boat. They see Christians as these people who sit up on their high horse and look down on everybody else and point fingers at everybody else and tell them what they're doing wrong, while they themselves probably aren't actually that much better. And this is really sad because it's often true and it's often accurate. I've experienced it. I'm guessing you've experienced that in some way or another as well. And it's especially sad because Jesus actually directly condemns this kind of judgmental heart. Jesus says, hey, if you're gonna follow me, there's no room for hypocritical behavior. There's no room for people who think they're better than the world, finger pointing, judging, condemning, throwing shade at people from a distance when you don't even know them or know their heart. That's not Jesus. That's not Christianity. That is not what we are supposed to be known for as followers of Jesus. And Jesus is clear that there is sin, that there is right and wrong, there's good and evil. He never shies away from that, but he wants to push back against our judgmental hearts and show us that there's actually a good and a loving way to use judgment and a wrong and a harmful and hypocritical way to practice judgment. So here's what Jesus says, Matthew 7, verse 1-5. He says, "Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure that you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there's the log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." So what is Jesus saying in verse 1 and 2? He says, "Judge not that you be not judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." So Jesus is telling us to be very careful about how we judge people, about deciding where they stand before God, because God is going to judge us with the same harshness that we judge people. So he's saying that how we look at people and make judgments about them actually reveals what we think about ourselves and about God. Right? Because if we think that we're basically good because of the way that we live and the things we do or don't do, and I think that God loves me because I don't watch 18A movies and I don't listen to Nicki Minaj, and we start to look at ourselves as good and we look down on people and condemn them when they do things that we think are wrong. Or if I think that, I've got things figured out and I'm the smartest, I'm the coolest, my way is the right way or the best way to do things, I'm gonna start looking at others who are different and who are doing things differently than me and start judging them. They're a loser, they're dumb, they're ugly, they're wrong, they're probably blank. I bet that they blank. They'll never blank. But Jesus is saying that if we understand who we really are and who he is, it will completely flip how we look at people and judge them. So we need to understand that to be a Christian does not mean that I am a morally superior person. Being a Christian is to admit that I am a broken sinner saved by nothing but the grace and forgiveness of God through faith in Jesus. I'm not good. See, left to my own devices, I'm selfish, I'm prideful, and I am lost. That's why I need Jesus. And instead of judging me harshly and giving me what I actually deserve because of my sin, Jesus came and took what I deserve on himself, dying a horrific death on the cross for me and saying, it's done. The price for your sin, it's paid for in full. I took care of it. Now walk free, live free of your guilt. That's how much I love you. That is grace. I get what I don't deserve, and Jesus got what I deserve, death on the cross. I'm no better than anyone else. We all sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. We all miss the mark. The only difference is that I've been forgiven by God through my faith in Jesus based on what he has done for me, not what I could ever do for him. The only difference is that I've been given a new heart and made a new creation purely by the power and grace and kindness of God. And that's why there should never be such a thing as an arrogant Christian with an I'm better than you attitude. Because by definition, a follower of Jesus is someone who has recognized their own sinfulness and hopelessness and has been rescued by God. So how can that person then look at someone who is just as broken, just as in need of grace, and then judge them for it? No, Jesus says you approach people with the grace and love and patience and understanding that I have shown to you. So how we judge always springs from our experience of grace in the gospel. Now that's why Jesus says this in verse 3-5. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So we are called to practice humility, not hypocrisy. Jesus says, why are you looking for other people's issues when you're not even dealing with your own? You're trying to see a tiny little speck in someone else's eye when you have a tree sticking out of your face. Check yourself. Guys, do not be that type of person who walks around school, who hangs out with people, who trolls social media, always coming to conclusions about other people, always pointing out what you think is wrong with other people. That's so toxic. That's arrogant. It's so un-Christ-like. Do not be that person. Do you remember the story of the woman caught in her sin? She's caught in adultery in John's gospel. And the religious people, they want to stone her to death. What does Jesus tell them? He says, let the one who is without sin throw the first stone at her. If you want to call out what's wrong with everybody else, check yourself. Check your own heart. Check your own pride, your own motives, your own thoughts, your own words. Check what you care about, what you spend your time doing, and deal with the sin in your own life, because I guarantee there's some stuff there. And then, once you've dealt with the log in your own eye between you and God, what does verse 5 say? It says you'll be able to see clearly so you can help your brother with the speck in his eye. So Jesus doesn't tell us not to call things out in other people, right? Notice that he calls us to take the speck out of our brother's eye, to help our brother identify where he's going wrong, where he's straying, and to help correct him because we love him. So Jesus never shies away from calling people out for their sin. We're actually supposed to make judgment calls about actions, but we're supposed to make them with wisdom and discernment. And Jesus' point is that how we do that really, really matters. We can't and we shouldn't try to call out and deal with other people's garbage until we deal with our own. We won't be seeing clearly, it'll be clouded with sin and our own motives, and godly judgment happens out of a place of humility, not hypocrisy. That's Jesus' point. And the second thing we need to notice is that godly judgment happens from a place of relationship, not from a distance. So notice that Jesus uses the word brother a couple times in the passage, which in the Bible can mean your own actual brother or a close friend or a fellow Christian. Either way, it's someone who you know and who knows you. And the point is that removing the speck from someone's eye, calling things out in a loving way, it happens between people who are actually walking together, who know each other closely and care about one another. Guys, do you know how easy it is to look at people from a distance and judge them and point the finger at them when we actually know very little about them, without knowing their heart, without knowing their story, knowing what they're dealing with and struggling with? That's why throwing stones at somebody is easy. You can do damage to them from far away without ever having to come close to them and look in their eyes and see and hear and understand them. That drives people away. That is not the love of Jesus. What does Jesus do? That's the gospel. He draws near. He enters into our mess. He meets us where we are, and he grabs us by the hand in his love and leads us out. That's way harder than judging from a distance. But that's how we reach people. That's how we sharpen one another. Through relationships, through time spent, the hard work, bonds formed, careful listening, trust. Jesus is not saying we're never supposed to judge actions. There are things in our lives that are straight up wrong and sinful, and they're hurting us and they need to be called out. But in order to hear that and receive it, it's got to come from humility, and it's got to come from someone who's earned the right to be heard, earned the right to speak the truth in love to us. Someone who isn't pointing a finger or throwing a stone from a distance, but is saying and showing to us, I'm right here in this with you. So it's humility, not hypocrisy. It's from relationship, not from a distance. And lastly, godly judgment builds up. It doesn't tear down. Verse 5, Jesus says that once your own eye is clear, you can take the speck out of your brother's eye. You can help him or her because you see that the speck in their eye is hurting them. It's affecting their vision. It's causing them pain. And you want to help them move forward. So think about when you judge someone's actions or words or appearance or anything else about them. Think about those times. When you think something or say something to them or to one of your friends behind their back, what's the motive? What's the motive? Are you evaluating them and thinking about them and talking about them because you love them and you want to see them meet Jesus and feel loved and repent and change for their good and for God's glory? Or are you doing those things because you're angry, because you're jealous, because you're sad, lonely? Maybe you're insecure, you're frustrated. Do you want to tear that person down, take a shot at them, knock them down a notch, tear down people's opinion of them? See, we're called to love people with the love that God has first poured into our hearts. Do you know what that love looks like? Paul tells us what it looks like in 1 Corinthians. He says, love believes all things and hopes all things. Love believes the best of people and it hopes the best for people. Love wants to see people know God and walk with Him more closely and live more fruitful and meaningful lives, putting away sin and following Jesus. And sometimes that's going to mean having tough, honest conversations about sin. To have a friend who you know sees clearly and is wise, who can speak into your life with godly judgment and godly wisdom, and that's such a gift. There are going to be times when you have to call out your brother or sister, and they'll have to do the same for you. But when it's done with humility, from a place of trusting relationship, with their good as the goal, it is a good and loving and God-honoring thing. So, are you judging other people and thinking you're better than them without checking your own heart? To that, Jesus says, remember where you would be without the cross. It's humility, not hypocrisy. Are you throwing stones at people instead of coming alongside of them? Jesus says it's from relationship, not from a distance. Are you using judgment and discernment to tear down and to destroy? Jesus says we love and we build up and we sharpen. How's your judgment?